Hey everybody, welcome back to another Sunday Night Live. Before we start, I'm going to get and check my sound, check live, make sure we're live, and if anybody knows, and if anything is crazy, then we will take off the microphone. We'll see what happens here. Let me just check. I know it is Father's Day, so most of the people probably won't join us today, but if you want to tune in another day, no problem. Let me just check to make sure. All right, let me just tune in another day, no problem. All right, check to make sure. All right, let me just tune in another day, no problem. I don't know if it sounds good or not, but what we'll do is I'll just unplug the sound. Let me know how you feel about the sound. I don't know what's going on. So, hey Dad, how you doing? So we will take off this background sound, and I'm going to check my sound one more time just to see how it sounds outside of this being off. I'm going to check my sound one more time just to see how. All right, so it sounds okay. And like I said, if you guys watch it back, hopefully the sound is good. All right, so we are going to talk about just some real estate news, some different topics outside of the market in which I'm in. And you guys let me know your thoughts, let me know your feelings. We're going to talk about how the housing situation is not just a U.S. problem, and it hasn't been a U.S. problem. It's a global problem, right? So we're going to dip into the Canada market, which is still in the continent of Northern America. However, we're just going to go north instead of across the seas, and we're just going to talk a little bit about their market. I am not located in Canada, so a lot of this information will be very vague and limited according to what they have in the article that we read, but we'll try to understand it and see a little bit of the difference or the nuances when it comes to their whole lending practices in regards to buying a house or owning a house in Canada. All right, so before we start, I'm going to wish everybody a happy Father's Day, and I'll put the banner on the screen. So if you are a father, or if you are a person who has raised someone to be, a fatherly figure, then we want to say happy Father's Day to everyone who is a father or fatherly figure. And hopefully you had a great day. And again, if you catch us later on, hopefully you had a wonderful day again. If you are new to the channel, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Also hit that like button. We want to make sure that if you like real estate content similar to this, you hit the like button. It'll help to start filtering into your algorithm on YouTube so you can learn more about real estate or get engaged in more real estate content. Also, once the video ends, if you see a shooting star below, it's called a hype button. So please also hit that shooting star hype button to kind of get us through the algorithm. So that way, again, you can be entertained by more content that is similar as far as real estate and get involved in conversations in regard to it. All right, so here we go. Let's kind of start this chat off in regard to how we like to do it. And that is, of course, looking at what's going on in the mortgage rates real quick. But what we're going to do before we talk about that, we're going to read this article that came out on Daily Mortgage Rates Daily, which it says mortgage rates stage decent recovery of post-Fed losses. So it says mortgage rates spiked yesterday after, again, this was posted June 18th, which was Thursday prior to this weekend. It says the mortgage rate spiked yesterday after the Fed announcement. So if you guys know, the Fed had just met a couple of days ago, and they basically decided not to move the interest rates. Again, the interest rates do not in turn always affect what the mortgage rates are going to look like. Interest rates are more short term, and the mortgage rate when it comes to buying a house is more affected by the 10-year treasury bond. However, this has been a discussion, so we talk about it and we let you know what's going on. So the primary driver was the Fed's revised outlook for the potential rate hikes later this year, because the Fed's funds rate governs ultra short-term transactions, which we just stated, 24 hours or less. It has the biggest impact on the short-term debt and its diminishing impact on longer debt. It says, while the typical mortgage may be able to last 30 years. In practice, the average mortgage length due to refinances and sales is a moving target assumed to be around 5 years. So according to some of my lender friends and partners, people always wonder why when it comes to mortgage rates and houses, or the terms per se, why is it more on a 10-year treasury type of that bond market? And I was told, according to one of my lender friends or colleagues, however you guys want to put it, I was told that the reason why they kind of go on that route is because most people typically throughout the years would go and try to either refinance within a certain period of time, like close to 10 years, or they would try to sell their house before that time period, right? Most people was moving out the house in 5 or 7 years or things like that. So that's why it kind of goes off of that 10-year treasury. But again, that's what I was told. If you want more information, reach out to your local lender or financier in regards to that. But it says that's helping us today. The short-term debt is still having some indigestion over Fed Day, but longer-term debt has recovered more of yesterday's losses. The top tier 30-year fixed rates are about halfway back to yesterday's pre-Fed levels for the average mortgage lender, and in the lower middle of the range since mid-May. So now we're going to check out the rates as of right now. So we can get our rate check-in. If you are in the market to buy right now, or if you are trying to sell and you just want to know where the rates are at because you feel like if the rates go lower, you possibly can get more for your house. Because I know when I talk to some sellers, that's what they're hoping for, that if the rates are lower, more people will come in the market, which will hopefully in turn push up the housing expenses or prices that they can get more out of their house. All right, so the 30-year conventional fix is at 6.58. So not much of a change since last week when we talked. The conventional 15 years is 6.515. The 30-year jumbo is 6.81. The ARM is at 6.3. The FHA is at 6.5, and the VA is at 6.7. So again, remember that these are national type of average mortgage rates. So this does not mean you're going to get this rate when you go to apply for a mortgage. For a home loan, I should say, sorry. You might get something higher, you might get something around here, you might get something lower. It all depends on different factors when it comes to you as an individual, debt to income ratio, and all those different things, right? So now let's get off of that and we will talk about what I found. I was like, hey, you know what? Let's talk about other things happening, right? We have things happening in Florida, which is in the United States, and of course, we got things happening around the world in different countries. Again, we're going to go north to our northern snowbirds, which are in Canada, and we're going to talk about what they are saying from some of their economists in regards to people who bought during the peak of the housing market, similar to that we saw in America, because remember, this was a global thing when the banks around the world in total lowered rates and everything to make borrowing basically making easy. Not easy money, making it not as expensive to borrow money. So you saw a lot of people going out buying, selling real estate, maybe jumping into the stock market, doing different things because the pandemic hit. And once that pandemic hit, what happened is that things kind of shifted down. What that happened, and in turn, the global banking market per se kind of responded, depending on where you were located at. And what that in turn happened is that the Feds or whoever runs that particular sector in that market decided to lower rates. And when they lowered rates, a lot of borrowing started happening because it was cheaper to borrow money. So right here, we're in Canada. Again, I don't live in Canada, but we're going to have conversation about it. And if you are someone who's watching this video who is in Canada, please don't hesitate to kind of talk to us in the live chat if you're here tonight, or write something in the comments below after you see this video. It says nearly 1 in 10 Toronto mortgage holders won't qualify to refinance next year. It says the Bank of Canada says that cities' tumbling real estate prices have resulted in less equity and leverage for homeowners. So what they're seeing now, and what we're seeing in other parts of the country in the United States as well, is that some of the markets are actually depreciating in home value from the 2022-2023 height of the housing market. We're seeing values kind of go down depending on where you're at, because there are some markets in some areas where people say they are still seeing appreciation. Toronto homeowners remain some of the country's most vulnerable borrowers, according to a recent Bank of Canada report. The new study estimates that roughly 9% of Torontians with mortgages won't qualify for refinance next year, more than double the percentage of Canadians as a whole. Says strong income growth over the past 5 years should allow most borrowers to manage payment increases, the Bank of Canada said. But those with weaker income growth may have less flexibility. Borrowers often need a certain amount of equity in their homes in order to refinance, and years of deflating home values in Toronto have eroded that cushion. Earlier this month, the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board put the average home price in the city at $1.07 million. So $1.1 million. And this is interesting because on the flip side, outside of what we're talking about when it comes to this, we're going to also see what our economist, as a part of the NAR Association of Realtors, Lawrence Yoon, is saying when it comes to millennials in the future, as far as what he thinks the average home price will be in the future. So in Canada right now, they're saying the average home price in Toronto, part of Canada, I should say, is about $1 million. It's down roughly 20% from the market peak in 2022. So it was higher in 2022, about 20% more. In the condo market, falling prices and sluggish sales have pushed some developers to offer steep discounts. And as you know, too, again, depending on where you're located in the United States, we are seeing a sluggish and falling prices a lot in the condo market because condos, of course, have become a big kind of factor where people don't want to pay the HOAs, right? I mean, the HOAs have become a big factor where more people are kind of getting out the condo market, or if they're in certain communities, they don't want to pay those dues because of those assessments being causing, upper prices, and your monthly HOA fees are also additional assessments on top of your HOA fees. It says the Bank of Canada goes on to warn that the situation could get worse if prices continue to fall. A 10% drop in home values would increase the share of Toronto borrowers unable to refinance at renewal to 12%. Says these findings expose a duality in Toronto's housing market. Lower home prices have come as a relief to buyers, but they have also left many owners in a precautious position. For those who bought near the market peak, a weaker housing market could prove almost as problematic as higher interest rates. And this is what this particular writer, I guess it's Sakia, I don't know if that's how you say her name, she wrote about this Toronto's housing market. So basically what they're saying is that a lot of people bought at the peak. They're losing equity in their property. And typically when it comes to refinancing, you need some type of equity in your property to do so. Do you always need to hold equity in your property to refinance? No, it just depends on what type of refinancing you're doing. You're going to have this, a fuller conversation with a lender or a financier, whoever you decide to go to, if you're trying to refinance. But it just depends. Conventional loans, typically, I don't think you can refinance them because there is a certain set percentage of equity that has to be in place. But if you're in America, I believe that you can do like the streamline refinancing with FHA, different things like that. So if you have FHA, VA, because they're government backed, you can typically refinance even if there's no equity there. Of course, talk to your lender to get more specifics because everything is different depending on what type of loans you carry and where your equity is at. If you have little to no equity, and then in Canada, they have something different. So basically what they're saying is that most of these people who bought at the peak won't even be able to possibly refinance. And so let's kind of see the difference of Canada's housing market and their home loans compared to America's home loan situation, as far as how does it differ, what is kind of similar, how they go about their mortgage lending. And again, if you are from Canada and watching us tonight, or if you're on the replay, let us know more specifics in the comments below, because I do not live in Canada. But we're just going to talk about what's happening globally around the market when it comes to housing. And maybe next live we'll try to see what's going on overseas in Japan or something. All right, so when it comes to comparing how loans work in America compared to Canada, this is like a little breakdown provided to us by, let me see, BMO has provided us a breakdown of the differences between how mortgages work. So it says, use this table below to better understand the difference between U.S. and Canadian mortgages. So it says in Canada, mortgages in Canada. So mortgage amortization periods are typically up to 25 years, compared to United States, where the mortgage term typically ranges 15 to 30 years. So again, in America, we typically have a fixed rate of amortization and payoff within that 30-year time schedule, where in Canada, they have an amortization up to 25 years, but their terms are in increments of, like, I believe they range from as little, it'll tell us more, but I think it ranges from like as low as a year to 5 years as far as your terms in Canada. All right, so it says mortgage term shorter. It says shorter length mortgage terms are negotiated through the amortization period and range from, okay, so 6 months to 10 years. So in Canada, it can go up, I guess, up to 10 years in Canada. I thought it was 5 years, but you know, things change. I'm not in Canada, so. And then in America, it says the mortgage does not need to be renegotiated at any point during the term, meaning that basically you get a 30-year fixed, and within that 30 years, it means your mortgage should be paid off. Compared to Canada, where if they go up to 10 years, if you have a 25-year amortization term, you will have to go back and renegotiate on your mortgage for whatever is the current rate of the market, or try to refinance or different things like that. So it says in Canada, at the end of each term, a new term length and interest rate are negotiated. In America, at the end of the term, if any payments have been made when scheduled, the mortgage is fully paid off. So that's what we just said. In Canada, in general, the longer term, the higher the interest rate. So the longer they have in their terms, the higher their interest rates. The shorter in their terms, the lower the possible interest rate. In America, it's something similar to, I believe, don't quote me on this, I'm not a lender, but typically I believe if you go, like, let's say a 15-year mortgage, typically the interest rates is a little cheaper if you go lower instead of a 30-year, because it's that risk, it's risk adverse. That's how they kind of create the loans and everything when they do loans. Hey, what's going on, Croy? How are you? Sorry I'm late. That's no problem. It's okay. I know it's Father's Day, so people are out enjoying their Father's Day, so it's okay. I'm doing good. Hopefully you're doing well. It's just been very busy and getting things done, because outside of this, people probably don't know this, but I also create, I'm creating another card game. So I have like my card games I'm creating and stuff too. So I just been, you know, kind of busy doing other things. Okay, so in America, in regards to the mortgage, it says mortgage interest rates can be either fixed or adjusted. In America, we have a fixed or adjusted rate. And in Canada, I believe they have something similar too, but let's just read more about it. So you can have a 30-year fixed, or you can have an adjustable mortgage rate. It says in Canada, in general, we already read that, mortgage terms can either be fixed, interest rate does not change over the course of term, or variable rate changes as the prime rates change. So the way I'm breaking this down right here is, as far as when it comes to their variable things, it seems like if the rates change, I don't know, I could be wrong because I'm just interpreting from what they wrote. Does it change? Is it variable per year of the term? Like if you do a 1-year term, does it change after that year is up? Or is it variable, meaning that it can change daily, monthly? I don't know, but I'm thinking it's more of a term. So if you do a 1-year term on it, it'll probably change after that year to whatever it adjusted to market value wise. Again, if you're in Canada, let me know and more information. Where are we at? It says with a fixed rate, mortgage rate payments will remain the same for the entire mortgage, which we know in America. With an adjustable rate, mortgage rate stays the same for the first 3 to 10 years, after which the rate may adjust annually for the remainder of the amortization period based on the market interest rate changes. All right, so right here it says the end of the mortgage term. So in Canada, at the end of a term, you can pay off the balance of the mortgage. So once your term is up, so if you do a 5-year term, it states on here that they can go up to 10-year terms. So if you do a 5-year term, that means that you can pay the rest off. If you're on a 25 year amortization, let me make sure we're correct what they say right here. So your 25-year amortization schedule, and you do 5 years, that means you got 20 years left of whatever is left to pay off per se. You can either pay it off in full according to this, or you can go and they have a thing called renew the mortgage with the current lender. So you can go back to your current lender, you can renew your mortgage, and things like that, or you can renegotiate with a new lender, different things. I'm sorry if you guys hear noise. My next door neighbor is blasting the music as if they are deaf. So if you hear additional noise, I apologize. Because, you know, it's summertime and people seem to have no regard of anyone else around them. And then, so when it comes to the United States, the provisions of the mortgage stay the same throughout the mortgage term and does not need to be renegotiated. And then right here, they have their prepayment options. Prepayment options are set out in the mortgage agreement and vary. This is in Canada, depending on whether your mortgage is open or closed rate. In America, most U.S. mortgages can be paid off in full, or additional payments can be made at any time without penalty. Again, in Canada, an open rate mortgage lets you pay off your mortgage at any time without penalty, but interest rates are generally higher. And then right here it says, with a closed rate mortgage, there are penalties for prepayment outside of the established prepayment opportunities. For example, you may be able to increase payments up to 10% a year without penalty. So this, just breaking it down, the different ways as far as how mortgages work in Canada and the United States, this is why it's a concern as far as what we talked about earlier, that they stated that a lot of Canadians, especially in Toronto, will have a hard time or may not be able to refinance based on how their lending terms go when it comes to mortgages. Oh, he said, you can't hear the music? Okay. All right, great. I'm glad you guys can't hear the music because the music is blasting in the distance over here. My next door neighbor is blasting music. All right, so, okay, now my computer is buffering. So let me know your thoughts when it comes to, you know, how the different mortgages work. And now we are going to get into what's happening in Florida in regard to why some people are not retiring there no more. Uh-oh, now my computer is buffering. I apologize, you guys, because this computer is buffering. And okay, so let me know. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear this or not. Let me see. It might not be able to hear this. Let me see. We're going to get into the news about Florida. So let's see. All right, let's get into the news about Florida. And if you were a retiree going to Florida, we're going to get into some Florida news about how some of these retirees are no longer going to Florida. Let me know if you can hear that. I was trying to do a sound break, but I don't know. I'm trying to, I'm testing things out while we're live. I don't know if you guys could hear the sound break that I was trying to do as far as the news. Let me know. All right, so let's talk about Florida. If you guys, we had a conversation earlier about Canada. So if you missed it, go back to, scroll to understand a little bit about Canada's market. Hey, what's up? Kotaxita was napping. That's all right. Got to get your nap on this Sunday. It's a relaxing day. So appreciate you being here. Got up from the nap. All right. So I don't know if you guys are retirees looking to move to Florida. At one time, Florida was the thing, right? And especially if you're in the north, you leave the north after working so many hard years, and then you go down to Florida, buy something cheap, retire on the beach, and just relax your life away. No taxes, state income taxes or different things like that. I believe you don't have to pay in this particular state. So a lot of people would kind of flock to Florida for certain, income reasons. And now they're saying that people are actually leaving Florida or going halfway. So they're calling the rise of the halfbacks. Retirees who moved to Florida are now fleeing it. So this article is from Realtor.com, and it was June 12, 2026. They said the classic retirement pipeline has been established for years. Grow up in the Northeast, make your money in a place like New York, and then retire in Florida for the low cost of living and easy beach access. But a new migration pattern is emerging. A confluence of factors have soured things a bit for those who moved to Florida. And now thousands of them are becoming halfbacks. They've moved halfway back north and settled in states like South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, or Tennessee. For anyone weighing their own retirement plans, this trend offers a useful lesson. The calculus of where to retire is changing fast. Florida may no longer be the automatic answer, or at least it's not the final one. So because I believe it's probably not the final one because, housing prices have risen. tremendously. And as we all know, as people flock towards a particular city or a place that have more people come, prices go up, right? Especially if you're coming from overpriced places like New York, California, these different places, and you're going to Florida at one time that was more affordable. The more people that kind of flock to a state that was more affordable, it starts to go up in price as more and more people come into the state. Hey, what's going on, Lang? Thanks for joining us tonight. If you guys are at the channel, please hit the like button if you're here tonight. I appreciate it. And again, if you have anything to say, if you're watching this on the playback, please don't be shy. Sorry, to comment below in the comments. And if you are live and you're joining us on a device in which you can chat, please join us in the chat. I always love to have a discussion with who is joining us tonight. And let me know your thoughts about housing in different areas. We're in Florida now. We just left Canada. Now we travel to Florida. It says Florida's retirees are now looking elsewhere. According to the data from Hire a Helper, over 2.1 million people aged 65 and older moved in 2025. Florida was still the king of the cohort with over 40,000 retirees moving to the state. But surprisingly, nearly as many people 65 and up also left Florida altogether. The state's net gain was just about 815 people. It says the state with the biggest net gain in retirees is actually South Carolina. So let me know if you guys are retirees, if you're shifting to South Carolina, or if you know someone that shifted to South Carolina. So they're saying Florida is no longer the state in which the most people are retiring in. It says a state that has prompted itself as a retirement destination, but certainly doesn't have the same reputation as Florida or Arizona. It was followed by Texas, then North Carolina, and Tennessee. So these are the states becoming the new retiree places: South Carolina, Texas, North Carolina, and Tennessee. I've heard that, of course, the property taxes in Texas are extremely high. So let me know your thoughts. And where were South Carolina's newest retirees residents coming from? Mostly higher cost states filling the squeeze nearby. North Carolina led that way, but Florida was right behind, followed by New York. The pattern is hard to miss. So they're saying people, again, are coming from, they moved to Florida, now they're repositioning themselves and shifting back to South Carolina because Florida has become overly expensive. As we know, a lot of these home insurances have left Florida as well. So insurance prices have gone up because of the natural disasters and with that happening, people are shifting kind of back inland. Even though in South Carolina, you still have that shore part where you get like Myrtle Beach and all those on the shore, but they're kind of shifting somewhere else where they hopefully can find affordability. And when it comes to, you know, home prices, property taxes, possibly insurance costs. So it says people are leaving expensive, overburdened markets and landing somewhere that still feels like a deal. And as we stated earlier, if you keep going to certain areas and everybody keeps shifting, eventually prices will go up as well. They will shift up too. So we have to keep our eye out on what's going to happen in South Carolina, North Carolina. I've already heard Tennessee has become overvalued as well. What's wrong with Florida? It says Florida may still be the gold standard for retirees, but in many ways, reality has failed to live up to its representation, and its people are catching on. I would say about 40% of retirees I work with are from Florida, says Lauren Reinhart, a residential broker at Howard Hanna. Oh, this is a big brokerage, actually. Real estate services in Asheville, North Carolina. Florida wasn't what they were promised. She said the heat has become unbearable. The larger cities, when I go to Florida, I really do not like Florida myself, to be honest. I step off the plane, my whole back is sweating, you guys. I'm a profusive sweater just by being outside after a certain period of time, or even if I'm exercising, I just start profusively sweating. And I know it's nasty, but it is what it is. That's how it was made. So yeah, I'm not a fan of Florida weather either. The largest cities feel overdeveloped with infrastructure that hasn't kept up, and the cost of living, particularly insurance and HOA fees, have started to take a hit on their retirement budgets. So again, a lot of people are shifting from Florida, especially these retirees, older folks, because they're like, this is somewhere I want to retire. But now the increase of HOAs, you know, going from, let's say, $100 a month to maybe $300, maybe to $1,000 a month. I did see a recent report where it was an HOA that literally shifted from when they first bought the house 5 years ago, they were paying about $100 a month. In 3 years, they were up to $350 a month for the HOA. And then within this fifth year, they're up to like $1,000 something a month for the HOA. And the reason for that is because they said it was about 80 homes in this community, but only 20 of the homes were actually paying the HOA dues, and the other homes were kind of delinquent with their dues. And then also it became a shift of a lot of investors moving into the neighborhood. So it's only actually 20 homeowners that own in that community, and the other 60 homes are investment deals, and some of these investors and these people haven't been paying the HOA fees, and because of that, in order to keep the HOA running, they had to basically put the cost on the 20 homeowners who are paying those monthly HOA fees, and so it shifted everything up to their monthly fee being $1,000-something a month. I wish I had that video, but I'll have to find it. But it was I saw it come across YouTube. It was a news report, and I was like, whew. I was like, the crazy. It says in a recent Florida Atlantic University survey, half of respondents said they would consider leaving the state due to the rising cost of living and high home prices and stubborn interest rates, which plague much of the nation anywhere, are only the part of that equation. He said, I do think that Florida's housing market is very scary for lots of people, says Julia, Julia, a broker with Coldwell Banker. When someone owns a house, they're going to start looking at its continued costs, and your mortgage is just a part of it. Your property tax and your insurance and your HOA are another huge factor. You always have to pay those. The number changes, but the fact that you have to pay doesn't change. And again, we also know when you buy houses as well, you have maintenance on the houses that you have to do as well. According to 1-800-INSURANCE, after years of double-digit increases in rates, Florida homeowners may pay nearly 5 times the national average of $2,110 for insurance. A combination of consistent hurricanes, a massive amount of fraud and litigation, and a loss of insurance carriers led to Florida's insurance crisis. The state has tried to stem the rising tide of these costs, but it may have been too little, too late for some residents. A bad storm means insurance increases, and even after the increase, you're still in the path of storms. It's just a vicious cycle, and I think a lot of people moving out of Florida just had it. That's what Donovan said. And so this kind of says right here, seniors are abandoning Florida for these retirement hotspots. Here's how many Americans age 65 or older move to these other states. So again, if you are an aging person, or if you see yourself shifting, do you see yourself, if you're in Florida or if you were going to Florida, do you see yourself shifting out of Florida because of the rising costs? And so it says right here, South Carolina is number 1, Texas is number 2, North Carolina, Tennessee. People are still shifting to Arizona, Idaho, Alabama, Wisconsin, Georgia, and Mississippi. So these are the top, 10 states, I believe, or and then it says, and then it kind of gets again into like where are the halfbacks going? They're going to South Carolina. We kind of stated that earlier. Where else did they say? North Carolina is also in there. So we don't want to read that again. And then this is again about people shifting, remote working and stuff like that. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. If you are in Florida, what's the shifting looking like? And then we're going to also talk about what's happening in regards to foreclosures in Florida as well. Croy said, Clark, Florida is becoming the new California. It's the hidden fees that get you when you come. As Mr. David says, the gimme is no state tax, and the gotcha is property tax, home insurance, and car insurance. Yeah, that's what it's looking like. Like you said, it's becoming a new California. I don't live in Florida, but I know you're in Florida. So it's always great to hear from people's perspective, like where they're at, where they're living, and what they're seeing. And there's also another realtor that's online. He's a big realtor. He is in Florida, and he's always walking around talking about the what's going on down there as far as where he's at. And I heard about the property taxes, the hidden fees. I believe you guys also have things outside of HOAs called like CCDs or DCC, something like that. It's a community something that you guys have as well, and some of these communities outside of HOA fees. So yeah, Florida is very interesting. He said, I would never buy in Florida, just buy in California. It's no difference. So, and that's crazy, right? To think that you wouldn't buy in Florida, but you'll buy in California, which is a highly, a higher cost state. So it shows you that the comparability, like you stated earlier, that it's becoming so expensive that why not just buy in an expensive state where, you could possibly, as time goes on, hopefully get appreciation out of your property that makes sense. Hey, what's going on, Donna? How you doing tonight? Again, if you guys are joining us now, happy Father's Day, or if you are a fatherly figure to somebody in your life, happy Father's Day as well. You are much appreciated, and I appreciate you guys being here tonight. And as mentioned, always join in the discussion as we're live. And if on the playback, if you miss us, please comment below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you are new to the channel. Kotek Sita said, my city view got blocked last week by a gentrifier. Not happy at all about it. Oh, wow. So did they build in front of your where you're currently living at, or a gentrifier as far as putting things out or whatever? I'm guessing they must have built something. They must have built something in your community, but I could be wrong. It's just a guess. Let me know. All right, now let's talk about what they're talking about as far as foreclosures in Florida. Again, the number is relatively low. However, we're just looking at what's happening. So according to Realtor.com, this came out on June 11th. It says Florida leads in foreclosures as filings rise 14% nationwide. So nationwide, they're saying that foreclosures are up year over year, 14%. However, when people break it down, you got to be very understanding of how the people are breaking stuff down. They're going, sometimes you'll hear reports where it's month over month compared to year over year. So month over month, they might say, hey, housing prices are up month over month, or they might say foreclosure filings are down month over month. But again, you want to really look at year over year. What is the impact of the housing market year over year? Because again, housing is delayed a couple months as far as the actual data. So you always want to try to compare year over year. So when you really look at the year over year report, you'll see that housing, depending on what markets you're in, home prices have come down, maybe foreclosure filings are going up. So you got to understand how they're kind of wording information when you're listening to housing reports. Kotek Sita said, built a 2.5 story row home, 12 o'clock, I had a view, 13, I didn't. Oh, wow. So you saw at 12 o'clock p.m. you had a view, and at 1 p.m. you didn't have a view no more? I guess that's how I'm interpreting it. So, oh man, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. I know when you get used to something all the time that you lived in some place and somebody comes along and just blocks the view, it's like, dang, you could have came next door and knocked on my door and let me know. All right, so according to Realtor.com, it says foreclosures have continued apace, with Florida leading the nation in May, according to a new report. Nationwide foreclosure filings dropped 5% last month. So again, how they're wording it, last month, nationwide from April, but surged 14% from a year ago, according to the May 2026 foreclosure market report released by property data provider Adam. Florida had the worst foreclosure rate in the country, with 1 in every 2,110 housing units in the Sunshine State carrying a foreclosure filing, compared with 1 in every 3,562 housing units nationwide. So again, a foreclosure filing does not mean it foreclosed. It just means that there was the lender started the filing process, but maybe the homeowner got to it in time, the investor, whoever they might be foreclosing on, got to it in time to stop that foreclosure. Also, if you guys don't know, typically you can file all the way up to the day of, even on the courthouse steps, a bankruptcy or whatever, or modification to deny that foreclosure or stop the foreclosure in the time being. But he said, or Kotex, he said, no, now it's just a dumpy house in a dumpy neighborhood. Oh man, not a dumpy house in a dumpy neighborhood. Well, we're going to pray that something great will happen and it won't be a dumpy house no more in a dumpy neighborhood. All right, it says Florida was followed in foreclosure rates by South Carolina, Maryland, while Vermont and South Dakota had the lowest foreclosure rates in the nation. I don't know if they talk about Georgia in this. Again, Georgia's foreclosure rates are up, but when they go and break it down month over the month, it looks like it's down, because 1 month you'll have, maybe 10 foreclosure filings, and the next month you'll have 0. So they'll say, oh, it's down whatever percent from last month, But again, that's why I say understand how, the nuances of the words and how they're putting together when they're talking about different things. Foreclosure starts and completed foreclosures both increased compared to last year, reflecting ongoing pressure on some homeowners as elevated mortgage rates, rising home ownership costs, and affordability constraints persist, says Adam CEO Robert Barber. At the same time, foreclosure volumes remain well below historic norms, indicating that the housing market continues to show resilience despite these challenges. So as we stated earlier, it is below the norm as far as foreclosures. However, we are seeing a uptick of foreclosures, right? The typical housing market will always see foreclosures. And I feel like we will see a little bit more foreclosures just because we went through the time of the pandemic, inflated housing prices, people getting in and getting mortgages. they might have said, oh, I got this low interest rate, a 2% or 3%, but yet when they bought into the market at the time, the house value was different. So as time is going on and people continuously want their house to appreciate per se, right? With that appreciation comes assessed tax values, meaning that your taxes go up depending on what state you're in. Because every state is different. I'm not in California, but according to what I heard in California, as far as the housing market, if you bought a house, let's say years ago for $200,000, according to what a realtor told me out there, again, check with your realtor and what's happening in California, or let me know if you're in the chat from California, that if you bought a house years ago for $200,000, your taxes are still being assessed according to the $200,000 house that you bought. But if you were to buy a house now at that person who had a $200,000 house, they sold it for $3 million, and you buy it at $3 million, your taxes will always be assessed in that $3 million range, whatever you bought the house at. So every state, as far as how they reassess, how they work their taxes, property taxes is different compared. So you got to understand the property tax laws, your exemptions, all those things in your state. So really get an understanding of it. Every state has different things, right? Which is crazy to me. I always call it the divided states of America because there's no similar. Like every state has their own laws. So, you got to really understand what's happening in your state. Foreclosure rates and rankings by state in May 2026. Florida ranked #1 in the highest foreclosure rate in May, while Vermont had the lowest foreclosure rate and ranked 50th. So they're showing right here, the highest states right here. One, #2 is right here. And what's this? Because this is Georgia right here. So wait, I'm trying to think of how my states are, y'all. Sorry. Is this South Carolina? I might be wrong, but I think that's South Carolina. South Carolina, I think it's South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, I think. All right, so South Carolina, I believe, is #2 if I'm reading it right. #3 is, this is bad. This is why social studies is good in the United States of America. Where's #3 at? #3 is up here, which looks like Delaware. Delaware is #3, and then #4 is over here in Nevada. So we're seeing, I believe it's Nevada. Don't beat me up, you guys. I'm looking at the map. Y'all let me know if I'm getting my map right. All right, it says mid-range cities are seeing foreclosure slow. It says among larger cities, Cleveland recorded the worst foreclosure rate in May 2026 with one filing for every 1,524 housing units. Other major cities with the highest foreclosure rates, Baltimore, 1 in every 1,804, Tampa, Florida, 1 in every 1,878. And it kind of goes on and digs deeper into where they're seeing foreclosures at. And I'm also mentioning this too because I had a short conversation last night on the phone with an investor, and I'm sorry she went through this situation, but she had bought a house from someone, and they kind of quick claim deeded the house to her. However, she didn't realize that it was a foreclosure was still happening on a house, and because of that, she actually was implicated in the lawsuit for the foreclosure property, and yeah, she got attached to it because now she's the owner of the house, right? So if you are buying a house and if it is going through foreclosure, if it hasn't hit the auction, whether it be online auction sites or the courthouse steps, depending on how your state does foreclosures, really understand how to transfer it correctly and make sure none of that gets transferred on to you. You don't want to be the recipient of a lawsuit or someone coming after you for any delinquency or debt or taking anything from you because the house is foreclosure and you foreclosed or in foreclosure and you transfer the property not the correct way. All right. So be very mindful how you go about real estate transactions, you guys. Santa Cruz, California foreclosures decreased from 93 in May 2025 to 21 in May 2026. So they saw a decrease in foreclosures in Santa Rosa, California. So they went from 93 from a year ago to 21. So that's good. While Honolulu, Seattle, Vistala, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Vesale, no, California, and Greeley, Colorado, I don't know, somebody get me again, all saw foreclosures decrease by around 50%. So again, we have a very bifurcated market. We have one area we're seeing a decrease in foreclosures, which is great. We don't want people to go into foreclosures, but then we have certain markets where we're seeing an increase in foreclosures, just like housing prices, right? We're seeing one market where housing prices are still ticking up a little bit, and we're seeing another market where housing prices are adjusting down. Even inside certain cities where you might, like, I'm in Georgia, so let's take Georgia for example. In the metro Atlanta area, you'll have a decrease of houses adjusting down, but then you'll have certain areas where you'll actually see houses still trending up because of a certain pocket of the neighborhood. So it really becomes very specific, very specific. So you got to see what's happening. Okay, Greeley. Okay, I was like, I don't know. Thank you, Coach Taxita. But yeah, so just be mindful, understand what's happening in your market, because we are seeing different things occurring right now, from foreclosures to the unaffordability of the housing market. And it's a global thing. It's not just in America. Like we said, we examined earlier, Canada, Toronto, them facing the possibility of not being able to refinance because of their mortgage terms and how their loans are, and no equity in their property. And they bought at the peak of the market, and now prices are dwindling down. And again, that could be a situation that you might end up in America as well, if you have been told by your lender that you could refinance. And let's just say you had a conventional loan. Again, you want to get more specifics with your lender, but say you had a conventional loan, you might not be able to refinance your conventional loan if you don't have enough equity in the property. But sometimes you can refinance on an FHA and a VA loan without no equity, because they have different type of ways in which you can do as far as like the streamlines and all those things like that. And then also VA and FHA are government-backed loans, so that gives you more of a like kind of stability, I should say. But definitely check into it with the lender if you're in that situation now, where you bought a house, you were told you can refinance. If you just recently bought one at 5-6% interest rates, maybe 7-8%, and you were told you can refinance, and you haven't, you're having some struggles. Talk to your lender and see if it's something that you could possibly do. It makes sense, because it might not make sense if it only went down a couple points. Texas and Florida, where foreclosures high, face similar challenges. In May, Texas saw the highest raw number of foreclosure starts at 3,590, while Florida trailed slightly behind with 3,315. Again, a lot of people say that's not a lot of foreclosures when it comes to the state in itself and how many homes are in the state. And then also we got to break down these foreclosures, right? These are filings. Are these actual pre-foreclosures? Are these foreclosures that close on the courthouse steps? Are they now REOs, which are owned by the bank now, and they're trying to offload them? Are they selling them to hedge funds, corporations? Are they putting them back on the market to sell independently by brokerages? So we got to really get into specifics and nuances of how these foreclosures are being divvied out. And then also, understanding how big the state is. The states are in general, how many people, how many homes are in the states, right? Because 3,500 and homes is, somebody might say, well, that's like 0.0000001% or something, right? Of foreclosure. So, got to get into the weeds and understand what's happening in your neighborhood, because maybe it's 100 foreclosures happening in your particular town. You never know, right? Out of this 3,000. It says Texas is on the list, not due to a bad economy, but due to a confluence of few cost drivers simultaneously, says Levi Rogers, owner of LG Realty. We've had property taxes increase 20 to 40% across many of our counties since 2021 in Texas. Insurance premiums rose statewide, not just on the coast, mostly due to hail and wind loss. And the builder buy downs from 2022 and 2024 are ending for many borrowers, causing their payments to reset. So this is another thing where I have a video on my channel about buy downs. If you guys didn't understand the full concept of a buy down, I kind of equate it to a little bit more of a, like, it kind of goes hand in hand, but it's not the same as like an adjustable mortgage rate. It's not the same, because a buy down is the lender is actually paying money to buy the rate down, and an adjustable mortgage is that your mortgage changes as your, the particular term ends that you put in place as far as your loan. So if you did a 5-year term with adjustable mortgage rate in 5 years, your mortgage will adjust like to market value or whatever you talk to the lender to adjust it to, per se. But with a buy down, what's happening is that the builders are buying it down. So you might have seen some new construction builders saying, hey, we're giving you a 2-1 buy down, a 3-1 buy down. So the first year it'll be, let's just say at the time, the market interest rate was 5%, whatever. So the first year we're going to buy it down to 3%. And then the next year it'll go up to 4%. And then the last year on that buy down, it'll adjust to whatever the current rate was when they bought it. So if it was 5%, they might adjust it to 5, or they might say, we didn't buy out that last whatever, and they might adjust to whatever the market rate is, right? So you got to understand how that buy down was put in place. And so what he's saying here is that these buy downs ending is causing borrowers their monthly mortgages to go up, because if your buy down is going up and you did a 2-1 or 3-1, whatever buy down you did, a 1-1, it's adjusting up, and what it adjusting up is causing your mortgage to go up outside of the interest rate going higher, but also the property taxes increasing on top of that. Because when you buy new construction, you're typically paying on the land. You're not paying on the structure on the land until your house is reassessed. Every state Every county works different with assessments. In Georgia, it's typically once a year your property's getting assessed. Some places every 5 years. It just depends on where you're at. So you're getting those reassessments of the taxes, which again, people, please appeal your taxes as well. If you get a tax your taxes in the mail, they don't make sense, appeal the taxes. And also look at your taxes. Most times the majority of your money from your taxes is going to schools. So understand the taxes as well, understanding millage rates, all those different things on your taxes. And then you are getting this increase in insurance, right? So you're getting these increases, which is causing your monthly mortgage to go up. So people now are in a thing where they are like, I need to get out of this home. But the market is adjusting down depending on where you're at in Texas. And with that happening, is like, how do I sell a home for, less? Do I have the money to bring it to the closing table to get out of this house? Because we are seeing this in Atlanta as well, Metro Atlanta. A couple of my realtor colleagues have seen it as well, where they have some people bringing money to the closing table to get out their houses. They're short selling now. So just understanding it. It's not to be dim and grim or, to be the grim reaper and being negative about the housing market. It's just about being realistic to what's occurring. And again, this is not occurring everywhere to everybody. So it's a bifurcated market. It's different in different markets. At the same time, he says the influx of new buyers to the state has slowed enough that it's no longer possible to sell and walk away. So again, that migration has slowed to Texas, has slowed to Florida. Migration has even slowed to Metro Atlanta. So they're saying, it's now like, okay, all these houses are just sitting on the market and no one can buy them. And many of the new construction subdevelopments surrounding San Antonio, I'm watching escrow shortages range from $600 to $1,200 per month. He continues, this is the difference between current and 90 days late. These people qualified and paid for a number of years before taxes and insurance moved ahead of their paycheck. There are similar issues in Florida, where property taxes have dramatically increased and climate disasters have shifted insurance premiums up every upward. And then there's the influx of new residents that both states saw during the pandemic. Many of them were drawn to door-busting mortgage rates on new construction. And again, with that influx came more higher prices, right? And so with the higher prices, people saw the shifting of how people were moving. All these builders started trying to build. They were like, money, 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 money. All they saw was dollar signs, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And they started building. So you do have a lot of areas, Florida, Texas, Atlanta, South Carolina, North Carolina, a lot of these places that have a lot of land. You see an influx of building, and some of these projects are just coming to fruition now because it might have took long to get everything done according to coding and permitting. So now you're seeing a lot of empty new construction sites, and you're seeing a lot of these new construction people offering these incentives like, hey, $30,000 of closing costs. Hey, we're going to give you $20,000 closing costs, a year of your HOA dues paid, and you're also going to get a buy now, a fixed rate for the whole time for the 30-year term for 3.99, even though the house is going to be $700,000, right? But they don't, because they don't want to adjust the prices down. But you are seeing a couple builders now that are like, hey, we have to adjust these prices down. At the end of the day, we're still going to make something off of them, but we have to unload these properties. And then with that happening too, you're getting a lot of spec builds, meaning that none of these houses are built to your own design or your own liking. They're like, hey, we got 3 different floor plans. You can get the green, the blue, the purple. That's all. So what floor plan do you want? And it's very spec, and then they're building them up. So most of these new construction homes are cookie cutter. Let me know your thoughts, as you guys are listening, and if what you're seeing, and you're seeing a lot of more cookie cutter, basic floor plan houses. You're seeing them build up like boxes real quick, and a lot of these homes are not fully, inspected or done correctly. You're getting, no firewalls in place. You're getting, nails is all over the place. You're getting, it's just crazy. But it's not everybody, but it's just like when you're getting a new construction, when you're talking to the sales agent on site, if you decide not to use a buyer's agent to go with you, because to be honest, and I was telling my dad this earlier when we was talking, I can understand people's gripe of like wanting to use a real estate agent. So I'm not the person that always tells you to use one. If you feel like you want to buy something yourself that you're buying personally, or you want to sell your own stuff, I can understand it, because some people feel like an agent doesn't do anything. But again, it just depends on what type of real estate agent you use. If you use a very good professional one, you'll get the value out of why you're using the agent. If you're just using somebody that's got a license, you're not going to get, you're not going to get the purpose of using them. So you are going to say my real estate agent was trash or my real estate agent didn't do nothing, because if you don't get one that's actually doing something, they're not doing anything. And I have stories for days. And I was just talking to my dad earlier about this in the car with a real estate agent that one of my clients, we just put an offer into a house, and the lady don't know what's going on. I'm just like, what's going on? What is happening? What is happening? I'm like Jen and Jackie. Like Jen has coined the term like 20% agent or whatever. And I'm like, man, you can shoot. Now she says 10%. I'm like, baby, I'm at 5%. Okay, so it says there were countless home buyers, especially on the new builds, who took advantage of temporary buy downs in the interest rates. Again, we explained that earlier. He says, as an example, if the rate was 6.5% on the mortgage, it was reduced to 4.5% for the first year, as I explained earlier. The second year, 5.5%, and then the third year went up to 6.5% for the 30-year term. And then this is the end of the thing. So understanding those concepts of real estate, understanding what's happening in totality when it comes to that. And now we're going to see the flip side, right? So the National Association of Realtors has an economist, chief economist called Lawrence Yun, and he is saying that come retirement age for millennials, the average house is going to be $1 million. So this is like the flip side of it, right? So when people are like, oh, I do want to buy a house, but I'm going to wait because I'm waiting for the prices to adjust down or whatever. So we're going to look at the side of, I do believe, to be honest, that prices will have a moment of adjusting down, because what goes up must come down. That's just, in reality, if you look at the cycle of housing, you'll see every certain amount of time periods, we have an adjustment down of housing, right? The Great Depression, we saw an adjustment of housing going down. We saw an adjustment with the Great Financial Crisis in 2008. We saw an adjustment a little bit too in the pandemic era. So we're going to see another adjustment in which home values depreciate. We even see right now, if you guys really dig into a lot of investors who bought properties are now unloading properties depending on where you're located. I'm in Georgia, right? We have a lot of institutional investors that are unloading properties because they want to become more liquid in an economy where we're seeing this scarcity as far as higher interest rates, making it more expensive to borrow money. But then also we're seeing, the cost of gas and all these things go up because of the craziness happening with the conflict over in the Middle East, to the tariffs that Trump had put in place that was illegally put in place, to all this nuance and nonsense. I should say not nuance, all this nonsense that's happening within our government. And it's just not in America, it's all over the world. So let's say a typical home will cost $1 million as millennials hit retirement, and economist says. So this is again on realtor.com, and it was published June 17th. So just a couple of days ago. It says the median U.S. home price will likely hit $1 million around 2050. So in 2050, when the millennial generation is hitting the traditional age of retirement, a top housing economist predicted. So by 2050, they say that they believe it's going to be $1 million for a home, a medium home in the United States of America, which is crazy because I keep saying this on the lives when we talk about this. Everybody's not going to be a millionaire. So who is going to be buying these houses? We would love everybody to be a millionaire. Trust me, I want to be a millionaire. I hope everybody that's watching this live tonight or watching on replay, you be a millionaire as well. We want to wish you wealth and prosperity. But in reality, we got to be realistic with ourselves, understand our finances, where we're at in life, and how do we progress going forward? Do we see ourselves eventually becoming a millionaire? So just being realistic. But anyway, it says essentially in about 25 years, the national median home price will be $1 million. Lawrence Yun, chief economist at the National Association of Realtors. And again, I am a realtor, but you always question everything you hear. You always have conversations, and you make sure that this makes sense to you. Don't never take anybody's word as, well, we used to say back in the day, your word as bond or whatever, but don't never take anybody's word as meaning the truth, right? From even what we talk about on these lives and we discuss, don't even take my word, right? You do your own investigation, create your own understanding of what makes sense to you. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting. Lang said, with the rising of these costs, it's best to purchase now and live in there forever. So the thing about it is we don't have a crystal ball, right? So when it comes to that, like what you're saying here, as far as the rising costs, does it make sense to purchase now? Or do you, like some people are doing, are like, hey, am I going to wait it out to see again when will we see another dip where home prices might adjust down, where I can get in low and then be able to ride the wave up, right? Like other people did in the past. They were riding the wave up. But again, we don't know, right? So does it make sense to buy right now as far as how the economy is going, while we're kind of seeing a crack, happening and things kind of, and prices going up and how home prices possibly going down where you live at? You just never know. I always tell people it has to make sense to where you're at currently in life. If you feel like you can afford to do so and you're going to be okay with it and you can ride the wave out without making any crazy financial decisions, go for it. But if you feel like it's not the time and you just want to rent and you want to ride the wave and see where you end up at, you go for that as well, right? It becomes a thing as far as you as a personal thing, what makes sense. And do you feel like if the house prices adjust down lower than where they're at today, do you feel okay if your equity disappears for a little bit and possibly bounces back in the future, right? She said, right, I understand. Yep. So you never know. So it's kind of hard to tell people to buy now, because I don't know. And I know people are like, well, why he don't know? He's a realtor. I'm like, because there's so many things when it comes to a particular person. Like, where are you personally at financially? Because there's a lot of people who buy homes that financially, when I look at them on paper or have conversations, I don't think you should be buying a home. But at the end of the day, you're going to do what you want to do. Some of those people buy homes and they ride the wave and they successfully ride the wave into the sunset and they're doing great, right? Now you got some people who might be good financially when you talk to them and they buy a house and they end up going down another path, right? They go down the wrong hill. So you don't know, right? So it's always like this catch-22, right? So it says, Lawrence June said at a conference in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, he said, it may be hard to envision that, but back in 1990, the national median price was $90,000. So in 1990, the national median price to buy a house was $90,000. You noted that even in San Francisco considered an exorbitantly, I don't know, I probably said that word wrong, price real estate market at the time. Had a median price of $250,000 in 1990. So in San Francisco at that time, exorbitantly. That's it, exorbitantly. I learned how to pronounce your words wrong. Had a median price at the time of $250,000 in 1990, right? So now you go to San Francisco, it's like what, $1 million properties, $2 million properties. Last month, the national median sales price for existing homes was nearly $430,000. Again, this is nationally, so where you're at might be it's a different number. Yoon used multiple scenarios to project home prices out into the future and says each scenario pointed to roughly the same timeline to hit $1 million basically in about 25 years, he said. Homeowners will continue to build wealth while renters are simply spinning their wheels, Yoon said, addressing the NAR members at the group's annual legislative meetings conference. So right here it shows the $1 million national median home price win scenarios on price gains, 3%, 4%, 5%. So he's saying as the years goes on, you'll see an increase in that percentage, and that'll take the home value over the limit, come basically creating this trajectory from the 90s all the way to now, how they've seen prices just increase. But again, we saw prices decrease, right? You might have bought a house in the 90s, and I've seen it on paper where someone bought a house in 2005 for $105,000 in a neighborhood in this area called Lithonia, east of Atlanta. They bought in this subdivision. So it's another thing too, and I've been telling some realtors that I come across now, as far as understanding the history of the neighborhoods, understanding how the history, then you can understand the trend and what the projection could possibly be. And I said, so if you can, and I know it's time consuming, but if you can look at the history. So it was a neighborhood in Lithonia where a client of mine purchased a townhouse at. And 2005, those townhomes were selling for $105,000. And when the financial housing crash happened, the homes were selling as low as $50,000. So they lost about 50% of their equity in that particular subdivision of housing. Meanwhile, down the street, other subdivisions didn't lose as much equity. They might have lost 10%, 20%, 30%, because every neighborhood is different, right? Every area. But by 2000, it took about 10 years for them to get their value back in their home. So by 2019, they got the value back. And then when 2020 came, it exceeded the value, right? So the homes that was once 105,000 regained that value by 2019, a 10-year gap. And then in 2020, they went from $110,000 to now people are selling for $220,000. And then so the client I was working with, she decided, this is an area she wanted to purchase in, but the prices didn't make sense. We did get a good price on one of them. We were able to negotiate the lady down, but something happened, so we couldn't do it. But now she waited two and a half years, and now she was able to get the price down to $180,000 something dollars, and then also got all her closing costs paid for, all the repairs made in her house. Got 2 months of her HOA paid for. So sometimes, you gotta wait it out a little bit. But again, you don't know what's going to happen. So I understand people's, like, I don't know. But just see how the trend is going, how many houses are trying to sell in the neighborhood. What does that housing trend look like? Coach Exita said, my home is nearly paid for, really can't sell and move anywhere in the US without taking another mortgage. I don't want a mortgage. Renting sucks. Yeah, exactly. And that's another conversation we had before, right? Where people who have houses paid off, or people's houses who are nearly paid off, or they bought so many years ago that they got $500 a month rent, right? Even when the properties increases, taxes or whatever, insurance, their rent might not be more than $800, or not rent, sorry, your mortgage, I'll be saying rent all the time. Your mortgage might not be more than $800 or whatever, or lower. And so most people are like, I don't want to shift into a new mortgage that's dang near $3,000 nowadays, $2,500, $15. It's rare to find, depending on where you're at in the country, to find something lower than like $2,000 nowadays for a daggone mortgage, because renting is dang near $2,000 something now. But so a lot of people don't want to shift. A lot of people don't want to sell. So typically you would have more people looking to sell their houses nowadays, because the norm was every 5 to 7 years people would shift, especially people of like a younger age, like in your 30s. Maybe you bought a house in your early 20s, and by your latter of your 20s, you want to shift out. You got a job promotion, you move somewhere else, you're exploring other opportunities. Or maybe you buy it in your late 20s and you're shifting out in your 30s. People tend to shift when they're younger, and then as you get older, if you're starting a family, you tend to stay complacent to raise your family because of the school system and different things like that. And with that being said, you see a different shift. But now what's happening, most people are just staying stagnant or complacent in their homes, where you might want to see a shift. But because we have the age range of people buying houses now, damn near late 30s and their 40s, you have second-time homeowners now buying in their 60s. You're not seeing this shift because people are not buying earlier in their life, and younger people typically take more risks. Than as you get older, you take less risks. You want stability. You want financial security. You're not taking these risks. And so because of that, you're getting people, like you said, that like, I'm not moving out of my home. I don't want to risk it. I don't want to hire a mortgage. I don't want to take on a new debt. So that's what's happening now. So it says, Yoon says he doesn't expect an economic recession to hit the U.S. in 2026. So he still believes that we're not in a recession in America currently in 2026. I guess I'm the only one that's going to say it loud and proud, we've been in a recession. I don't care what people are saying. Just because it doesn't show up on papers or they don't want to say it in the media, I just look around me, from friends, from people, from what's happening around me. We're in a recession, y'all. It's up to you if you want to be in La La Land, like I've been saying this last couple of weeks, where sellers, buyers, and some of these realtors, they all in La La Land. I'm like, y'all gonna make me feel crazy because y'all in La La Land. I be feeling like I'm crazy because I'm like, am I the only one that's seeing what's going on? He said projecting job gains for the year are at a solid 400,000 jobs. He stated, even though he didn't say that we lost. I think it was like 100-something thousand jobs. But hey, and it says his 2026 housing market forecast remained unchanged since the last revised in April, when he made a sharp downward revision to project home sales for the year in response to surging interest rates. The economist now expects mortgage rates to average 6.5%. And see, this is the thing, right, about an economist. And just like us, when we discuss these lives, right, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. So like 1 month he'll say, oh, home prices are going to stay steady. They're not going to appreciate at all. Rates are going to go down. Like every broker and economists and all that stuff was telling people in the midst of like 2023, when mortgage rates were, going up a lot in 2022, into 2022, into 2023, when they started shifting up because of inflation, everybody's like, oh, no problem. Like all these economists, all these lenders and everything were saying this whole model that I did not like. And I'm so glad they stopped saying it. It's like date the rate, marry the house. But is that it? Date the rate, marry the house, something like that. And I'm like, no, we don't want to do that. Because they're like, you can always refinance later. No, you can't. Depend on what type of loan you got, depend on if you have a job still, depend on your credit score. There's so many factors that allow you to refinance. So you have the money to pay the origination fees. You have all these other things that you have to do to refinance. Everybody might not get the opportunity to refinance. Like we stated earlier about Canada's market. Some of these people in Canada, about 10%, they said in Toronto, will not possibly have the opportunity to refinance due to low equity, due to the depreciation in their market. So it's not always that. So people, this is just hearsay. So when we have these conversations and these discussions, don't take our words as truth, because things adjust and then people start saying different things come tomorrow. Across 2026, he said roughly where they sit now, they said they're going to stay about 6.5% to 2026, which I can see that. I can actually see it adjusting up more too as well, because as of right now, the prediction as far as the Fed's cutting the interest rates, they don't have a prediction as far as them cutting it down anymore this year for the rest of the year. There actually have been some predictions where they think it might go up, but again, we know that the Feds that do the interest rates are short term. It's not the bond market. But however, as we saw when they adjusted these mortgage rates down as far as the Feds, or these interest rates down with the Feds, we still saw an increase in the mortgage rates when it came to the bond market. The 10-year, it went up. It didn't shift down. Now it's kind of adjusting down. It's about like 4 point something. But so it's showing you that it's not going in tandem with how the Feds are with the short-term rates. He sees home prices rising 4% this year, up slightly from 3% gain recorded 2025. You now projects existing home sales transaction volume will grow 4% from the 30-year low reached in 2025 as higher interest rates kept market frozen. Although mortgage rates have surged off the 3-year lows they touched in late February, rates remain modestly lower than they were a year ago. It says, breathing some life into the housing market. So he's saying with the rates kind of dipping a little bit, he feels like it's going to bring more people into the housing market to purchase. And again, it's up to you. Jessica from NAR, the NAR Deputy Chief Executive and Vice President of the research, says that certain segments of buyers remain active in the market despite ongoing affordability challenges. And that is true. There are certain buyers still active in the housing market. I don't know if you guys heard lately, they called this whole thing, it's called like a K-shaped economy, where they're saying like the only people that are buying now are the people who have the money. The wealthy people, the financially equipped people, they're the people buying. Meanwhile, the people at the bottom of the K, they're spending, but they're spending on debt. They're living off of credit cards. They're not living off like actual liquidity or any like money per se or savings, because most people can't save nowadays. Whether if you have a higher mortgage, if you just jumped into a house nowadays, or if you're renting, it becomes harder to kind of save with prices either going up, and they don't equate to your monthly income with your jobs, so it becomes harder to save. She said, I've been traveling around the nation this year, and I am hearing a lot from you that it's a really wonky market. She said, at the event on Tuesday, you'll list a home on the market, and sometimes it'll sit for months. So she's saying this because herself, Lawrence Yun, and they were both at a national conference for realtors. So she's basically saying, like, you realtors are saying you're putting a house on the market and it's sitting. And yeah, it's sitting because people are going into these houses. And I'm personally dealing with this, with my clients right now, where you're going into these houses and these people are trying to get market value for a house that needs to be fully renovated or needs to be updated or has, like, do you expect somebody, and this is what I tell my dad earlier when I was talking to him, do you equate it to you buying a car or equate it to you buying some type of materials? If I just bought a car and like say $2,000 for $10,000, it's very rare outside of the pandemic where the car's actually appreciated, but it's very rare where you think you're going to sell a car that you then drove for the last 10 or whatever years, sell it, buy it for 10,000 and then turn around without doing no work to it at all. Or even if you did work to it and then you selling it for 50,000, you're not going to do that. Like, yeah, homes are a little different as far as how they, appreciate per se, but typically the appreciation comes with the renovations being done, the maintenance of the house being done, like, putting a newer roof on, possibly. Maybe you selling the house and you put the roof on 5 years ago, people still feel good that it's a new roof on. They don't want a 30-year-old roof. If the life expectancy of the shingles are 25 years, some of these shingles now are 30, 50-year shingles. At the end of the day, insurance companies are not insuring certain houses or roofs after 10 or 15 years. So it then becomes an insurance liability. It becomes higher insurance costs every year that you're paying now. It becomes, when will the rain start coming and the water start leaking, right? So that creates affects the condition of the house. You have older systems. You have HVACs that are older, 30-year, 40-year HVACs. And yes, some people will say, I heard sellers and realtors will say, well, it's still working. It doesn't matter. It's still working. Yeah, but are we not adjusting to when it will stop working? And we know, like, even if something's new, it can break tomorrow too. However, if something's older, we will have a sense of feeling like it might break sooner than later or stop working sooner than later, right? So are we adjusting to this? Like, we're not going to say everything in the housing around you sold for 150,000 or 300,000, and now I'm gonna put my house on the market without the roof is 30 years old, the systems are 30, 50 years old. Because some of these houses, most of these houses that are selling and resale market now, depending on where you're at, they were built in 1950s, 1960s, 70s, 80s, right? Outside of the new construction homes, right? So because of that, people are like, I don't want to pay this for this house. And this is the mindset that people have to understand as far as selling the house too. Understand the value of your house and maybe equate it to something else. Like if I bought a pair of clothes, like some clothes about 30 years ago, and we all know clothes don't hold value. If I go to, sell the clothes at Goodwill, they're going to give me $1 for it, right? And I'm not saying your home doesn't hold value, but it's like, how do we adjust our mindset to selling our houses? How do we say, I still want some money out of the house, because if you kept the house up, if you maintained it, you put money into it, of course you should get something out of it, right? But if you didn't keep the house up and it's just sitting there and the pipes is going, the electricity is dated, the electrical is dated, the plumbing is dated. If you still over here with polybutylene pipes that's going to burst, or these other, some of these places now, it's like some PEX pipes that they have that be bursting. You have some of these pipes. I believe it's a company called Paneer or something. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but they have, let me see real quick. I'm going to show you this real quick and let me know your thoughts. Hey, what's going on, Miss H? Thanks for joining us. Again, I want to reiterate, if you guys are just joining us, happy Father's Day, or anyone who has been a fatherly figure to someone. We appreciate you. Thank you for being here. My dad's in the chat, so happy Father's Day to my dad and every other fathers. So let me see. It was a PEX pipe breaks that I believe D.R. Horton and certain other companies were using. And but I don't want to, I ain't trying to be in no daggone lawsuit, but I'm gonna show y'all and let me know. So this is by way of the news that I'm sharing. But and I just went on a whole tangent, so y'all gotta forgive me. I'm on a whole tangent. I'll be getting on the whole tangent, and I could be on here forever, but I'm not gonna keep y'all forever. I know when I get on the phone and talk to my dad, I be talking about real estate forever. I know he'd be like, dang, this boy don't shut up. It just be ongoing. Real estate. Because I'm like, it's crazy. Oh, shoot. I gotta stop sharing this until the commercial go by. Hold on. And it's a company who they were utilizing these put these particular pipes inside of a home.
Records reveal that homeowners claim the company sold them houses with faulty plumbing that have repeatedly failed, causing water damage. Atlanta News first investigative reporter Andy.
So the reason why I'm showing this video real quick is just based on the whole conversation we're having, where you want me to pay these overvalued prices, but you want me to my pipes to be bursting every day? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Not doing it. Hey, Clark and everybody. How often do realtors overprice houses to falsely prop up the local market? Hey, Rhonda, how you doing? Thanks for joining us on this Sunday. It happens all the time, to be honest. It happens all the time where houses are, falsely overpriced or overpriced, because what happens is you got two things that happen, right? So the first thing that happens, it could be a realtor goes into a seller trying to sell their house. The seller is saying, meanwhile, let's just say everything in their area sold for, let's just say $100,000. This seller is like, my house is worth $500,000. And I seen it happen to me where I was trying to talk to a client as well. And he kept overvaluing his house. And he was like, this is how much my house is. And I was like, you know what? I don't even want to work with you because it doesn't make sense. And it's a waste of time. And so what realtors will do is that they'll accept, they'll take it on, because all these realtors nowadays, they want to be like, oh, I have, I have listings. I have this, I'm this how they kind of like boast, show off themselves, or like boast in the real estate community or with their colleagues. I got 35 listings on the market. Meanwhile, about half of them are overpriced because the seller said they want this price. And they're just like, I'm just going to take the listing and I'll get it at the price they say, and then we'll slowly adjust it down to where it should be, and then it'll sell there. And because I have 30 listings on the market, that means that if these houses don't sell, or if they expire, or if the seller decides they don't want to work with me and withdrawn, it becomes a number game for some realtors, where it's like, okay, let me get these 30 listings, and if I just close one a month, it's okay. And if I overprice the houses, it's okay too, because sooner or later we can adjust the house price down. And I've seen this happen all the time, conversation with realtors, colleagues that I thought were actually good realtors. And I'm like, when we have these conversations and they say certain things, and I'm like, oh yeah, no. I'm like, we ain't on the same page. I turned down, unfortunately, and it is what it is. I have turned down several listings because I'm not going to take a price that don't make sense. The goal of helping someone with real estate is to get you in and out of the home effectively. Even if sometimes you price the house accordingly, sometimes it can sit long, right? Because maybe it's not a desirable neighborhood. Maybe it's not it's not a desirable neighborhood, or maybe if it's priced accordingly, if somebody comes in as an investor, that if it needs to be flipped, they might say, well, how am I going to make a return if we flip this house, because the prices in the neighborhood are showing this? So like recently with my client, is a neighborhood that we were trying to put an offer in for, they had the house at 174, but renovations in that neighborhood, if we were an investor or a flipper, at the top looked like it was about like 210. So the realtor told me that they had an offer for 150 from an investor, but that I guess it didn't go through, possibly because they ran the numbers and it didn't make sense. Because once you put the money into fixing these things up, and then you think about putting back on the market to sell it with a realtor, all these other fees, you have title fees, you have closing attorney fees, you have these fees, they want to take home a certain amount of money too as an investor. So it doesn't make sense. And so you end up with, sometimes you could price the house correctly and it could be still overvalued depending on who's purchasing it. But then you also do have realtors and some sellers that will falsely pop up the market and overprice. So I guess it just depends on how you look at it. But it happens all the time, to be honest, Ron. It happens all the time. Happy Father's Day to all that have been fathers, mentors, and everything else. We appreciate you. Yes, just what Link said. Happy Father's Day to everyone. We appreciate you. All right, let's get into this, and then I'll let you guys get on the way to enjoy the rest of your Father's Day. So this is a particular company, and I'm not saying it's happening with all of their pipes, but they have been having things of defective pipes. Some people said the pipes might be defective because what's happening is that these builders are getting these PEX pipes, and what they're doing is that they're leaving them out in the sun. And with a PEX pipe being out in the sun, it creates more deterioration faster. And so they're saying that this could be the problem of why these PEX pipes are bursting real quickly in people's homes. And these are new construction homes. So let me know if you know somebody that went through this, experiencing this as far as new construction.
Roddy shows us one of those homes with dozens of leaks.
November 21st around 8 p.m.
Like clockwork, water pipes in Matthew Arden's new home seem to leak.
These pipes like to burst on Fridays.
On schedule for years.
I mean, they burst every day, but it definitely likes Friday nights when I'm getting ready to settle down.
How many leaks have you had? If you had to guess.
If I had to guess, 26, 27. I stopped counting somewhere in the teens for a little while because they were coming one after the other, like day after day.
That's something we need to get fixed.
Today, Matthew says his home looks like Swiss cheese. Hole after hole after hole.
Another leak, another leak, another leak.
Matthew says the holes left the door open for bugs because he had to repair the pipes.
Roaches and bugs.
That's awful.
It is. My wife wants to kill me. That is the one bug that she cannot stand is roaches.
Matthew purchased his home in 2019 from D.R. Horton, one of the largest home builders in the country. It was brand new, turnkey ready. But, and I'd like to do
So even before the pandemic happened, because a lot of people are saying, with the pandemic happening, a lot of these homes are being thrown up. But in 2019, he purchased his home and he's experiencing.
his first investigation uncovered he's not the only one in his Dallas, Georgia neighborhood experiencing problems. According to a pending arbitration complaint against D.R. Horton, at least 15 other homeowners claimed their water pipes started leaking about 4 years after moving in.
We're just waiting. It's like a time bomb. I'm a nervous wreck all the time, wondering when it's going to hit the fan.
John and Rosemary Pastula, Greg Reneker, and Yasmin Roman.
You don't want to go out. You don't do your normal routines because you're so worried that when you come home, you're going to deal with a disaster.
These were all brand new homes.
Yes.
No one had ever lived in this home before you moved in.
No.
Ballpark, how much has this cost you?
Out of pocket, $5,000, but my estimate so far about a little over $50,000. We've got estimates that to do the whole house, we're going about $25,000.
$100,000 plus.
Yeah, close to 30,000 out of pocket, and the estimates are 100,000 plus.
And so exactly. So just hearing these numbers of these estimations, if you're purchasing a house nowadays, and if you're going in and you're seeing a house, and this situation is new construction, so they didn't know, right? But if you're purchasing a resale and you have an inspection done, and the inspector or the plumber, whoever comes and say these pipes are polybutylene or something, right? And you then go to the seller and say, hey, I want to go get a quote from a plumber, see how much it would cost to kind of put in a new pipe in PVC or whatever. And let's just say they say it's going to cost about $7,000, $8,000, and then on top of that, you guys got to remember that a plumber, they're just repiping stuff. They're not actually putting the walls back in. So you might need a contractor to come back and put the walls back in. Like the plumbers will come and they'll knock your whole wall down and they'll fix the stuff in the wall, but they're like, well, I'm not putting the sheetrock back up. I don't do sheetrock jobs. I do plumbing jobs. And so with that being the case, you're like, when you discover this, you say to the seller, like, hey, are we going to, give some type of concessions, some type of credits? Can we knock the price off the house if you don't want to give that? And if the seller's like, I don't want to do that, then I'll tell people move on. Because these houses are too expensive nowadays for somebody to be out here trying to negotiate you about some bad plumbing and some bad piping. Don't take the bait, y'all. Don't be desperate to buy something just because you want to have something.
In damages.
D.R. Horton did not respond to multiple emails, phone calls for Lent News first investigate. The pipes that D.R. Horton used in all of the homes, according to the arbitration complaint, were manufactured by the same company, Upinar.
It is coming from another piece of Upinar pipe.
Upinar declined to interview requests, sending this prepared statement that reads in part, independent experts have categorically stated there is not a systemic issue with our PEX pipe. Adding, we recognize that disruption plumbing issues can cause and have been actively engaged in working towards fair and appropriate resolutions. The homeowner's attorney, Chuck Douglas, says D.R. Horton should pay for the damages.
They made a promise to these homeowners in the form of a warranty, and they're now not living up to that promise.
Okay. Today is June 17th.
Matthew says it's past time.
We're 3 days since the last leak.
D.R. Horton be held accountable.
I'm realistic that as a homeowner, there's going to be repairs, but nothing to this extent. They have the responsibility to provide me with a livable home.
Now,
So that's in regards to like the piping, right? Again, fair use per se. We're basing it off of the Atlanta Investigation News Report. I don't know Upinar. I don't know nobody over there, so don't come for me. And I can't afford no lawsuit. But we're just saying it in the context of if you're buying stuff, you want to be very due diligent of what you're buying, especially because everything is it's very unaffordable nowadays. It's very, inflated in price. So, so what they were saying as far as, but those Upinar pipes being that they're PEX pipes, they were saying that what's happening on the new construction sites is that they're buying those PEX pipes and they're just leaving them outside, and then throughout the weather time, like the sun and everything, instead of them bringing it into the house, outside of the elements, they're kind of disintegrating because they're outside. And so by the time they put them inside the house with the plumbing, they then after 4 years, 5 years, they start to bust because they have already kind of disintegrated a little bit. Excuse me. Ms. H said, Clark, aren't those houses under warranty to help the homeowners repair the cost of the bill? Yeah, these houses are under warranty, just like they said in the report. But just because the house is under warranty, does the builder always satisfy the warranty? No. You could be under warranty. Is it fair? It's not fair. Like maybe 5-year warranty. It's typically used around 5 years, I believe, with the warranty. So And some of these people are like, you know, they'll get them on the phone. They'll say, okay, we'll have somebody come out here, blah, 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 blah. And then no one ever shows up, right? It becomes a cat and mouse game where you're chasing people around to come and satisfy something that shouldn't be occurring because you just bought a new construction. And again, this is not even outside new construction. This is even in the resale field. So when it goes back to this report that we were talking about, as far as him saying that the typical home will be $1 million in the future, and it's right here where they're saying houses are saying sometimes it's going to multiple offers, and they can be next door to each other, and they're showing like what's going on with the NAR and everything, and they said as far as the market being wonky, the market is wonky because people are looking at the affordability of it and the sense making of it all. Yes, as a seller, you still want to be able to get the equity out of the home, but if the home does not make sense for the price you're pricing it at, we gotta be cyclical on the seller side and on the buyer side. It's not saying that you can't come to a clear negotiation that makes sense for both parties, because that's what negotiating is, right? You give and take on both ends. It's not one person gets everything. That's not negotiating. That's just called stingy. That's how it works. So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts, you guys. I know I went over time. I appreciate everybody being here for Father's Day. We did talk a little earlier about the Canada housing market in Toronto, to be specific, according to what they're stating over there, where people won't possibly be able to refinance about 10%, but their market is different when it comes to mortgages compared to America's. The U.S. market, as far as mortgages, Toronto goes on a 25 amortization schedule. America typically runs out the whole amortization schedule when it comes to your mortgage being attached to it for the 30-year loan period as amortization wise. And so by the time an American pays off their mortgage in America, they don't no longer have to renegotiate or be able to renew per se. But in Toronto, Canada, they have to renew because their terms are limited. So if you want to know more about that, go back to the earlier video. Again, happy Father's Day. Thank you, Miss H. Appreciate you being here. Hey, Andy, Z4, you too. Streamer out. All right, peace out. And Go Taxi, thank you for joining us. And again, Rhonda, thank you for coming on. Lang. My dad was here tonight as well. Donna, Croy, everyone who always stops by, you know, has a great conversation. And for those that might be watching on a TV device that cannot comment, I appreciate you being here as well. And next Sunday we will have more conversation around the housing market, and we'll see what's happening. So I would take care, have a wonderful Sunday, and I look forward to see you guys next Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Bye-bye.